Hey there. Today I want to talk about a system that few have been aware of in the past, Cognos. The reason this system is so unknown is because it was originally designed for use by DFAS. However, in the past few years, its platform has grown significantly, opening up enough bandwidth for anyone in the DoD to request and receive access to it. Because of that, I've been on a mission to get Cognos incorporated into our regular office culture. So what is Cognos? I like to tell people that Cognos does the inverse of what DJMS does. In DJMS, you plug in a social security number in order to retrieve a list of pay data associated with that person. In Cognos, you plug in a list of pay data in order to retrieve a list of socials and any other desired data associated with that pay data. So with that aside, let me actually show you. Cognos is actually a module built into DMO. Because of that, you receive access to Cognos via AMPs, just like all the other DMO roles. Once you get access, you'll see the link here on the home screen. Once you click it and it loads, scroll down and hit accept, and then you're in. Cognos has a few neat little areas that you can explore to get to know, but today I'm going to highlight only two main areas that everyone would benefit from knowing: the Active Duty Query Studio and the personal and public folders. So first, let's dive into the Active Duty Query Studio. Once a system loads, you'll see a few different frames with some elements on them. There's this top left menu that shows some ways to insert and edit data, change layout, run report, and all of that. Right below that, there are things within those sub-menus with all the different things that you can kind of do to manipulate your data. And then up here at the top is sort of the same thing, just as a top bar, similar to anything like Microsoft Word. When you first get started, you're going to want to insert data. So just click on that, and it will start to load the sub-menu below. Once it loads, you'll see a plus sign to click the presentation layer. So click on that, and it'll load 3 more sub-menus here. Within these sub-menus, you have all kinds of data that's pretty neatly organized so that you can kind of access what you're looking for. So go ahead and just click plus on all of those. For the purpose of this training, I'm going to avoid adding any PII so that we can keep all of that protected. But what I will do is I'm only going to show the current load year filter. You can add multiple filters if you like to go all the way back 5 years. You can also just leave them off and it will automatically go back 5 years. But for this, I'll go ahead and do the current load year filter. So what you'll do is you click on it and then click insert. This area over here will then refresh to start to show a sample report that you're looking to pull. So there you have it. Our current load year filter is now added. I'll go ahead and pull that in now. Under the active member personnel information, you can find all kinds of stuff that you would normally see along the top bar of DJMS, such as their name, their social, their status, and such. All I'm going to pull here is the LC servicing ADSN. It's enough generalization to not contain any PII, but you can still kind of get the picture of how it can be organized. So I'll click that, hit insert, the report will then refresh, and now it'll show a sample of servicing ADSNs based on these members' records. So I'll go up here and I'll collapse that again. And under MMPA data, everything attempts to be organized in a certain manner. If you got used to using web DMOs, web MMPA, it's sort of similar to that. If you haven't and you've only relied on DJMS, it may take a bit of getting used to figure out where certain entitlements are actually lying. But today, I'm going to show you something a little more practical. When you pull XY management notices, you're looking for a list of new debts that you need in order to send out a debt letter. However, the management notice itself doesn't give a lot of insight on the debt, so you end up having to go to DJMS anyway so that you can get all the information you need. Additionally, you have to access DJMS a second time after 30 days to get more data in order to process the DQ20. Well, instead of all that, let's just put together a report here in Cognos that can achieve both objectives at once. So I have my servicing ADSN, and I'm just going to look at DQs specifically. So under this folder, I'm going to expand deductions. Now it'll actually give me a few different submenus here that I can use. Within here, we're specifically looking only for the open debts, so go ahead and expand open deductions here. now you'll get a very large list of some weird looking titles basically, but you can kind of break it down easily. So you see O stands for open, FD1 means FID D1, so this is actually for the FID D1. And then after that it'll give you a little bit of information on what element that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down until we get to OFDQ, because that's what we're looking for. Here we are. So if I pull just the FDQ FID ID, the only thing it's going to give me in this report is DQ, literally just the letters DQ. So we don't necessarily need that. So what I'm trying to get at is you're not going to need every single element from the DQ line, just the ones that you actually need in order to make the code or to send out the letter. So let's get the DQ entry open date, the DQ action, so we can see if it is suspended or where it's at in the process. We're going to scroll down a little bit here and we're actually going to select Format ID 2. What Format ID 2 is in DQ is what FID is the det for. This helps a lot when you're sending out the letter, so you can specify a reason. We're going to look down a little bit more and we'll look for deduction start date just to make sure it hasn't started yet or to determine if it has. Then we're going to select start overpayment and stop overpayment dates. And of course we don't want to forget the indebted amount. So I selected all of these by holding the control key. You can actually select multiple things at once, and that way you don't have to click insert and wait for this table to load each time you add an element. So let's go ahead and click insert now. You can always tell the report is loading when this little circle pops up here in the top right, and then eventually it'll pop up with a box saying your report is running. The more elements you add to this report and the more it expands, the longer it's going to take to run. So it's better to send the elements over in a large clump rather than one at a time. Well, here you have it. So we have our servicing ADSN, we have the entry open date for the DQ, we have the action, the format ID that's tied to that DQ, start date, the DQ deduction start date, and then the overpayment start date, stop overpayment date, and the debt amount. Something neat within Cognos too is that this is a built-in interface that lets you right-click on things in order to make stuff happen outside of just a normal web page. So let's say I want to filter down the action. I just right-click up here and filter comes up. When I click on filter, it will again load a new pane at the bottom with a list that I can now filter. So I only want to see the 18s, so let's just check that box. Let's say I want to filter an element to leave out missing blanks. This helps a lot when you're pulling multiple FIDs and you need to see only records that have all of them, such as somebody with an open DN and a specific 35 line. If you want to filter out missing columns, there's a block down here that says missing values. Simply click that, click the drop down, and then say leave out missing values. Let's go ahead and do that here. Click OK. And what it'll do is it'll bring up a detailed summary based on all your filters. We already had our current load year filter up here, so it's just wondering, do you want to see the current load year filter and this with no missing values, or do you want it to be an OR, where it'll show you only records of current load year filter unless there is a DQ action of 18 and it is still open. That's a little bit ridiculous. We of course wanted to filter both things down, so we'll leave it as and click OK. And there you have it. Now it's only filtered as 18s. You'll see this is only a collection of rows here. This is just a sample to show you a visualization of what your report is actually going to look like. If you want the report in full, all you have to do now is click Run Report. Always run with CSV format. The report will export much faster and be much easier to open. Once you click that, it will say your report is ready and it'll pop up to download. Click Save. Open your report. Click Yes, and there you have it. Expand your columns a little bit here, and here's your entire report. Another neat thing about Cognos is that you can actually maintain this report structure, save it for later, and run it anytime you want without having to rebuild it each time. You see a little save disk up here, so let's go ahead and click on that. If for some reason you get an error, just click on Save As instead. It will pop up with this small pane. You can then rename your report, add a description if you like, and it'll automatically save to your own personal folder within Cognos. Click OK, and there you go. This is the rundown on the Active Duty Query Studio template. You can do many other things within here, but that's the basics, and it'll help you build a report, which is the true meat and potatoes of what Cognos is. Feel free to experiment and see what other things that you can pull together. The next thing we'll go to is the folders. You recall we just saved our debt report folder, so on the main screen here, let's click on My Folders and see where that went. Here you are. The DQ report is right here. If you click this little play button, you can then run it directly off of this menu without having to access it through the Active Duty Query Studio. Simply change your format down to CSV and click Run. Another thing you can do is you can simply bookmark this link directly to your bookmarks if you'd like to. That way you don't have to go through DMO and then through Cognos each time to get to your reports. You can simply click the bookmark. The next thing to be aware of is the Public Folders tab. When you click in this tab, you can actually see where DFAS, other Air Force offices, and other branches have been saving their reports. For this one, we're going to click on DFAS BI Reporting, then Reports, then Customer Shared Reports, Air Force Central Site Customer Reports, and this is where many people have been saving their reports. As you can see, I have my own folder out here. The neat thing about public folders is that anybody can access it as soon as they receive access to Cognos. Again, you can just bookmark this address and reach this immediately at any time. And there you have it, a quick crash course on what Cognos is and how to use it. I hope this video has helped you understand the power of Cognos, and I'm excited to see what reports you're able to come up with. Feel free to share them with the FM community. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at the Resource Training Center.